We'll just wait for a minute. No one's online yet. Just one sec. Hello? Yeah. Good evening, everyone. We did not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We merely borrowed it from our children. And we owe it to them to give it to them the same way we received it, even if not better. We all know the different grave issues that plague the planet today: pollution, deforestation, climate change, overuse and misuse of resources, extensive mining, and so on. And even the current pandemic. Discussing the environment has become the need of the hour. Today, we have with us a panel of esteemed guests who will discuss ecosystem restoration and, and how we can all play a role in bringing change. On behalf of Vicky Karnataka Human Resource Council, I would like to thank all of you on the panel and thank you for taking time out to be part of this event. Thank you. Before we get into introductions and discussion, I'd like to share a few words about Vicky. Vicky Karnataka Human Resource Council, part of Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, a national business chamber whose endeavor it is to boost and build women's entrepreneurship and businesses through greater engagement with government institutions, global trade, and network. Vicky Karnataka Human Resource Council is an ambitious initiative by a team of accomplished women from diverse organizations and various walks of life to create a platform where women strive to make a difference. It touches upon pertinent topics, current events, sensitive issues, and much more. Every Thursday, we conduct live sessions on interesting, relevant topics. We invite you all to partake in our future sessions and check our homepage to see our past sessions. Now, let me introduce our esteemed guests to you. Vanita, the opening batsman for our Indian women's cricket team, has joined us to raise concerns about the ecological degradation at the local level, right in our neighborhoods. She started her cricket career playing with boys, but at the age of 11, her father took her to the Karnataka Institute of Cricket. There has been no looking back since then. She debuted in 2014 and has set a stellar record in World ODIs and World T20s. Welcome, Vanita, to the panel. Meera. Meera is the founder of Forest First, who works at the ground level to create awareness about the environment and the ecological balance in our state. She's an ecological lawyer and works with local tribes to maintain rare species of flora and fauna. Her passion stems from her small patch of land which she nurtured into a healthy forest. From then on, there has been no stopping her. Her most notable efforts have been in the areas of Wayanad and Kodagu. Welcome, Meera, to our panel.
Thank you.
Divya, when she was 22 years old, she had the opportunity to visit the Arctic, and that changed her life. She saw firsthand the impact of climate change. She has used her knowledge and skill set to align with organizations to ensure that projects implemented are in alignment with government regulations and that there are no violations. As ADB, she plays a pivotal role to ensure that development in Asia is in alliance with governments aimed at healthy and sustainable options for our environment. Welcome, Divya, to our panel.
I want to correct that. I actually went to Antarctica at 22 and I've been there twice. So I've also been to the
Okay.
Arctic. I've also been to the
Oh,
Arctic,
okay.
but yeah, Antarctica is what the first place I'd been. Yeah.
Trip was. Okay, I'm extremely sorry.
No problem.
So, to start with questions, Divya, can you share with us when you went for the Paris summit or as part of the Paris summit? Can you share with us, as ordinary people, maybe say 3 points that regular people should be aware of?
Yeah, I think my main area of work has been in supporting like projects in the energy sector, focusing
Okay.
on or supporting climate action. And
Okay.
the overarching umbrella agreement, as we know popularly, is called the Paris Agreement. One thing to remember today is that it's not actually really being implemented today. We are still in a very negotiation phase. Even
Okay.
the upcoming COP26 that happens in Glasgow, we are still in negotiations. Governments have set targets and put roadmaps and put plans together, but we really don't know how we are going to reach the targets yet. In that matter, I think there's no difference in saying that the Paris Agreement is, different from Sustainable Development Goals. So, what the UN Sustainable Development Goals are, the 17 goals, they are basically nothing but what Paris Agreement takes and puts them all in a climate perspective. So
Okay.
really, what I think each one of us can do is to just simply look at what these sustainable development goals are. These are 17 in number, easy to look at and say, okay, is there any one area that I can do something and how I can contribute to it? But
Okay.
coming to the next step, there is a big disconnect between what governments are saying that they'll do at the top level versus what is being happening at the ground level. And I think Meera ma'am and others will also touch this specifically. As citizens, there is a huge disconnect. We don't know what the government is doing, and secondly, we don't know what we are supposed to do. So one
Right.
thing that we each can do is look at small actions within our own homes and our neighborhoods.
Okay.
The simplest thing, though it sounds like a very technical term again, is energy efficiency or energy conservation. So the energy sector is what makes up close to 65-70% of emissions. And that
Okay.
basically is electricity and transport. These are the main two sectors. So each
Okay.
time you burn fuel, like you burn petrol, you are basically adding carbon emissions into the environment, right? So can you
Okay.
reduce that? Can you do public transport, right? So think of it at a very
Carpooling.
micro level, and every day what you do is causing that. Instead of putting your AC at 25, put it at 26. Your body might not
Okay.
feel very different, but even that 1 degree is probably making a difference in how many emissions are being generated in that point of time. Every time you leave a light on for like a few hours without your knowledge, you're burning coal somewhere in a power plant. Think about it in that perspective. It's just a shift in how you imagine things, rather than just saying that,
Okay.
oh, I just have to pay like 10 rupees extra for the electricity I wasted, right? Think of it from a
Right.
perspective of how am I impacting the environment. And so one thing is looking at sustainable development goals. Second thing is do a carbon footprint exercise. Go online, there are
Okay.
a million calculators. Calculate your impact today. That's it, simple.
Okay.
Third thing, basically talk to people around you, saying that something needs to
Okay.
be done for the environment. It's not just about like using less plastic bags or like kind of looking at that, but just talk about the personal experiences you feel that like, okay, we need to do something for the environment. Can we do something together? That's
Right.
it. Have a conversation. Three simple things.
Right. uh, Meera, would you be interested in telling us how you got interested in environment and your story in short?
Okay, I think Divya brought out very pertinent points, especially on the
Yes.
energy front. But while I connect back to that, uh, my trigger definitely is the fact that more than a quarter of the land area on our planet is already degraded. We have already caused the degradation in the past few years. We don't need to blame anybody. It's a collective thing, right? I mean, it's a collective process of human race as a species. Now we are definitely in the age of information, and interestingly, we have satellite images, we have all kinds of information that we have, even commoners have access to. So my trigger has been, my own space where we
Okay.
work. We have been working in the Wayanad and Kodagu landscape. It's catchment of
Okay.
river Kaveri and Kabini, feeding people in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Karnataka. Some of the two cities are dependent on the water from this particular landscape, right? So ensuring that there is the system degradation, or the ecosystem degradation in this landscape has been pretty high in the past many years, triggering human and human animal conflicts in the region, connecting it back to the farmer conflicts, and
Right.
the issues with respect to water, all that. So it's a connected problem. If we have to talk about, if there is less of water in Kaveri, when you open the taps in Bangalore, then what is the trigger? The trigger is that, if there are large scale deforestation happening in landscapes like Kodagu and Wayanad, yes, that's the connect, right? And that's where you connect back, you connect your lifelines back. And when you realize that the water that you're using in a city far away, 250 kilometers away, if it has to depend on the ecosystem health of a landscape that is 250 kilometers away, and definitely that needs a protection, that needs a highest amount of conservation, and that's definitely my trigger.
Thank you so much. Vanita, as a sports person and a celebrity, what got you interested personally in this domain?
Uh, I'm, I don't have to actually say anything because I belong to a city which is beautiful, which I've seen a lot of green. That itself, inspires us and inclined towards, ecosystem. And being a 90s kid, I've seen much better Bangalore. And, going back in my childhood days, I've seen a lot of, greenery around me. I've seen a lot of lakes, clear lakes, and fresh air. We've grown up like that. And today, if we go back and see those days and now, I feel really sad that today's kids are not able to get to the access of what we all have faced or we all have enjoyed back then, ma'am. And I come from a family which also supports a lot of organic. We are trying and contributing a lot in whatever little possible ways as a family also, so that we protect our planet, and that's the whole idea about it. And also, being an athlete, it is so important for us to have you know fresh air, and we know the importance of fresh air actually. So we've dealt it. And I personally, going through a lot of uh, decline in terms of nature that we all are not getting access to. For instance, I live right opposite to a lake in front of my house. When I initially shifted, it was beautiful to wake up to the view every day, and to see the clear water and all of those things, birds around. And now today, I think probably 5 years down the line, I don't even see a single bird around the lake. It's sad state today to see how how our nature has taken toll because of a lot of urbanization and all of those things. It's really important for us to keep educating the youth and also the elderly people to actually maintain what's been given to us. And that's what I'm trying my best to do in whatever possible ways, ma'am.
Thank you so much. That's very interesting. I came here about 15 years back, and I think I have seen the change from even in the weather. I used to wear a thin sweater during summers, and now even during winter, it's really
That
hardly necessary.
what we were talk about, the people who've been born in Bangalore definitely know what is the essence of it, or what they're missing now. Because being a 90s kid, like I said, I've enjoyed seeing the green the maximum. I've grown up, and like you rightly mentioned, we've all used to wear a woolen clothing during summer as well. So that's how beautiful the city was, and hopefully we'll get to see that someday back soon.
Divya, you have a very interesting story as to how you got involved in this. Would you like to share that with us? Divya, you're muted.
Thank you. So I'm talking about probably around 2000, late 2000s. So like 2008, I just graduated from university, and I did mechanical engineering, and I really had no idea what to do with my life. Like, a lot of people become engineers and then figure out what they want to do. I really was not sure. I was always passionate about the environment, but when I was writing an article on Earth Day in 2009 is when I came across an expedition. And no Indian women had been on this expedition until that time. And it was to Antarctica as a climate champion. And at that point, I didn't know what climate change was. The more prominent term was global warming. But I got to really, learn from the scratch and learn from the best in the world. So the expedition is run by Robert Swan Obi, who's the first person in the world to walk to both North and South Poles. And so I went on the expedition in 2009. November. I came back and I decided that I wanted to pursue a career in sustainability and climate action. So it started more at a level that the first time I did my carbon footprint exercise was on the ship in Antarctica when we were there for 2 weeks. And really, it blew my mind that, if I could understand what my impact is, then I can really make a shift, right? And so since more than a decade now, for the last 10 years, I have been an activist. I have been in a practitioner space where I've done sustainability management. And now I work currently in the policy and finance kind of sector. And really, I think what really drives me is that I have been able to shift the narrative for climate from all the doom and gloom to say that, okay, this is what has been wrong, to really say that this is what can be done right for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. We have so many opportunities to do things better. And I think that's been my biggest kind of learning from my whole decade-long journey in this space.
Thank you. So, Meera, this question is for you. How has it been trying to get community involved in the work that you have been trying to do?
So I've actually, because I work on the two districts. One is in Karnataka, Kodagu, and the other is in Kerala, which is Wayanad. And to me, there is no political boundaries, right? I mean, because both are east sloping districts, mother of the landscape of river Kaveri on the Kodagu side, the river Kabini on the Wayanad side. And the forest, every single forest that you see in this landscape is the mother of the river, and you just see the stream map of Kodagu or Wayanad. It looks like veins, and it's so beautiful in its whole ecosystem itself, right? And imagine that is what is supporting, so many people downstream. So if you look at topographically, these two districts are almost the same. But if you look at it from a people perspective, there are a lot of differences. And if I have to just go from Wayanad and along the Western Ghats, because we're also talking about a biodiversity hotspot, which is UNESCO World Heritage Site, and that's where we are working, and which really needs the utmost amount of conservation, right? And that's what we are thinking, that there is conservation, and the landscape is capable of of holding a large species diversity. So my experience has been, I work on species wherever we work in terms of restoration. We also work on conserving a very large diversity of species, floral species. Now, why we are talking about the diversity of floral species is the moment you have that kind of a diversity, it also supports a larger diversity of biodiversity in terms of mammalian species, birds, everything. And when it comes to community, right? I mean, we work on multiple models of restoration. One has been the sacred grove restoration. So if you look at Wayanad, for example, Wayanad is 50% of of the forest land in Wayanad is degraded by invasive species. There are two invasive species that are, completely taken over Wayanad. And when you see tourists come there, they look at the green, but then we know that all that is green is not green. There is a species called Senna, which has actually taken over some of the wildlife sanctuary areas and all that stuff. And what is the impact? The impact is definitely the impact of the community, right? The community living in and around this fringe village, because they just cannot do farming, beyond a certain time, because you have animal coming in. There is conflicts with the community and all that stuff. So when you have an overall landscape degradation, the ecological aspects of it also triggers a lot of human related issues. So when you look at a place like Wayanad, definitely there is a lot of interest in the forest fringe villages to ensure that there is this supported work with respect to ecosystem degradation, because they also understand there is nothing that the forests are able to support in terms of fodder, back to the this one. So similarly, what my experience again in Kodagu has been that the sacred grove restoration, there's a lot of community, because the people there, they are very well aware of of the species diversity, and they are very if you talk about wild edible fruits, they're all very excited about it. So I think that journey has been in terms of community, in terms of their understanding, there is a difference. But then in terms of action, you will see that there is a lot more of coherence in the Kodagu as a group. But then in Wayanad, the forest fringe villages are a little bit more aware of what really needs to be done.
Thank you. Vanita, a very similar question to you. Since you've been working in this domain, how has it been using your influence as a celebrity, as a sports person, encouraging youth to be part of the same movement?
Ma'am, whenever we get an opportunity, definitely, we do emphasize about the importance about maintaining our ecosystem in whatever, opportunity that we get. But again, to go back to the topic that we've been talking time and again, it's not like people are not aware of what are the things that we are supposed to be doing, or what is it like. It's just that I feel with the support of the government, and of course with the population around, I think we can create a much more better things, is what I feel, with the given current situation. Because I feel as individuals, we are limited to certain things, and all we can do is just contribute a little bit from our part, and just keep the chain going. But it takes a overall effort from from the other side as well, from the government as well, because anything to do with the ecosystem, a lot of government is involved in this, and a lot of authoritative has been given to them. But as human beings, what we can do is probably not litter the place, not pollute the place. These are the contributory aspects I feel we can contribute to the ecosystem. But I'm not saying that government has to do largely everything, but it's also us. We need to start taking those little tiny steps, and ensure that our environment, our surroundings have been kept clean. And I think if we can maintain this throughout a period, and then keep doing it time and again, I think the future generation will also start following, and maybe they'll start feeling like it's one of our own kind. And that's when you start taking care of it, when you start feeling that okay, this belongs to us, and we are part of it. That's the only time I feel we'll all start taking the responsibility in terms of maintaining the environment and the surroundings clean, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Divya, like Vanita said, it's not the lack of awareness that's the problem. What kind of messaging do you think will be possible for people across stratas to sit up and take notice that, it's getting late and it's time that we did something about this?
Okay, first thing, yes. Again, when you say it's getting late, don't say it's getting late. Look at it as an opportunity. The only way that people get inspired to do something is that you make them feel like, oh, I can contribute something. Not like there's a ticking time bomb, and that's now you need, if you don't do it, then you're like doing something wrong, right? So, and I think, of course, Vanita is aware of that, because, as a spokesperson, you need to be able to inspire people and motivate people. And I think how you can do that is by saying that, hey, I did this, can you do something like this? And basically, given the government angle, yes, policy can change behavior, but behavior can also drive policy. And another thing that what people can do is, like I said in the beginning, I talked about the micro level, like what am I doing in my daily life? But also, I think, like also driving what Meera ma'am was saying, we can look at our own kind of network, right? And with a network, say for example, I'll take the Vicky example, in fact, right? Like Vicky has a strong network, right? Like we are all women. One thing I really believe is that women are the ones who save the world, because at the end of the day, who decides what comes into the house on a daily basis? Every time you buy the vegetables, every time, like groceries are bought, every time you make like a furniture purchase or something, right? It's mostly women who make those choices. If they can be made aware that there is an alternative to plastic, or there is an eco-friendly option, they would be the ones who end up saving the world. And I truly believe that. So first thing is raising awareness that these are the options that are available, firstly, right? So, people like Vanita can do that, like the government can do that, right? They can raise awareness also, and that drives behavior. But then again, we can do it at a small level. We can create the demand for these eco-friendly products. When we drive the demand, the government has no option. Vicky can create the networks where you can promote women entrepreneurs who are doing these things. We can invest in them. We can bring finance to them. So we can look at ways to kind of make the whole eco-friendly businesses boom, right? It's not just about like okay, what am I doing just to support like in my own network. But now again, another level you can think is corporate, right? Like you have a job, you have an HR. Write to your HR and ask, has the company signed up for Paris Agreement? Amazon, Google, Microsoft, everybody have Paris Agreement targets. Ask if your company does, right? Have they signed on something? What is their sustainability policy for the company? We can ask. There's no harm in asking. I'm not going to, go and say, hey, why have you not written this policy? No need to do all that. Just ask. And if you know what is happening, then you can see what else you can do, right? So we can start and understand and have those conversations. Like I said again, climate change is nothing but a communication issue. Stop with the negativity and saying that we are running out of time, it's too late, that there's nothing left to do, it's all doom and gloom. Change the narrative. Say that, oh, there's an opportunity for me to do something, to contribute something, to create a positive impact. So let me do that and talk to more people about it.
Yeah, you're right. Change does start in very, very small ways, and the choices we make it starting at home. So
Yes.
yes, Vicky, Vicky can do a lot in that space, and we will talk about that in some time. Meera, I would like to know, is there any story or any incident that you would like to share based on your work in eco-restoration field?
So I'll, maybe an anecdotal story of the importance of a predator would maybe interest a lot of people. These landscapes, we think that the conflicts that we are talking about. I think I'll connect it back to what Divya mentioned, the choices, right? What we make, and I think Manita also touched upon the choice of organic, and I think there are people, the younger generation, who's already moving into organic, and I think that has a very strong connect. When you talk about eco restoration, the story that I wanted to highlight here is about many years ago in 1980s. I think probably when Vanita says that she was not even probably born at that time, right? Even before that, and that particular decade saw a lot of these foxes dying in the fields of Wayanad. What was the connection? The connection was to chemical use in a crop, banana, and crabs coming for because the banana was being cultivated on the wetlands, right? And crabs coming on the wetlands, and foxes were coming for the crabs. If people have read Silent Spring, by Rachel Carson. That is one book that anybody should read. And I think that's the connection. And what has happened in that ecosystem is elimination of a very critical predator. And 30 and 40 years down the line, we are sitting at a space where we have wild boar conflicts in the region. We have high levels of monkey menace in the region. Anything that is edible, you cannot grow in that region. And on the other side, we have diverted large-scale forest land. Right today, we are talking about just about 21% of forest land all over the country, out of which only 3.02% of forest land is very dense forest, as per the definition. I'm not giving statistics from my own, analysis. It is government reports, state of forest report as of 2019. It says only 3.02 very dense forest. Now, it's not about we creating very dense forest, right? You can't create very dense forest because these are all very specific ecosystems that has evolved over millions of years. And today, if we are saying that, okay, let me create something, no. What the first thing that one needs to do is to stop diversion of these kind of forest land for non-forest requirements. Linear projects, large scale. Divya made a very strong, good point about our energy. Our energy needs, our transport needs are actually diverting more and more such pristine forest land. And it's a very critical thing. We are actually talking about UN decade of ecosystem restoration. Even before we move to restoration is where you need, it is already degraded. The land is already degraded, and that's why you need restoration. Now, what do you do for stopping land from further degradation? Any degradation of forest land, any cutting of this forest land, it creates what is an opening in the forest. And when you have these openings, it attracts invasives, right? That's what is currently, the kind of grassroots level work we do. We work on what is called assisted natural regeneration, where we are removing invasives and ensuring that the native species can thrive in that region. Now, that is a lot of effort intensive process. It needs a lot of money and resources, human resources to ensure that. But what we are also doing is we are connecting it back to livelihoods, to the forest fringe villages, right? Now, I'm saying that is only the last resort. The first resort for us is to ensure what we have is preserved for posterity. No more of diversions. No more of diversions for energy projects, for road projects and all that. If we can create ring roads around cities, we definitely can create ring roads around our forests.
That is so true. Divya, is there any anecdotal story that you would like to share with us?
I think, not a personal story of sorts, but I think in connection with what I had mentioned about staying, positive and share more positive stories, right? I think my favorite story is the fact that before the whole energy sector, like industrial revolution happened, and oil and gas and fossil fuels, which is basically coal, became the norm. Before we had electricity, basically, how street lights were lit in most of Europe? It was whale oil. It was basically, hunting whales and then pulling out the blubber, the fat, and extracting oil out of it. And that was the primary source of energy in the world at that point. That's what we used to light street lamps. And it's a very gruesome history, right? So at some point, more than 100 years ago, the whale populations had come down to like 3 or 4% because of this intensive hunting of whales around the world. It has taken 100 years, but the whales have bounced back. It's taken only 100 years. Probably not forest. Forest will take, rainforest especially, will take millions of years. But a species like whales came back. Now whales are thriving in all parts of the world. I've seen whales in Antarctica. I've seen them, in the US and everywhere else. They are thriving. These populations are thriving. It took only 100 years for them to return. But the fact is that, humans drove a species like the whale to extinction at some point for their energy needs. So at the end of the day, we need to look at why we are using something. We really need to understand that oil and gas is not the solution. There are greater energy sources. There are ways to go around forest. And so really looking at the positive and success stories in the last 100 years of how species have bounced back, of how forests have, like even the Australian bushfires that happen, it is said that, the trees are, growing back again, right? So I think it's important for us to highlight these stories and share these stories and share these solutions. And this is something that I always try to kind of share, that we don't know our own history. If we learn from our history, we know that nature can bounce back.
Nature definitely can bounce back. We just need to do our bit, I guess.
Absolutely.
Vanita, how has the response been when you, like you mentioned, you stay near a lake and you've had problems with pollution over there? How has the response been, and has there been any change or development in that domain? Have things gotten better in that?
To be honest, no, ma'am, it's actually getting bad. Day by day, my heart pours out to actually the people who, in fact, there's a nice walking track around, and every time I go out for a walk there, I end up falling sick. I'm being very honest. I don't know if it's the pollution or if it's the air quality. I am really not sure of what has contributed usually, but every time I realize that every time I take a walk, I don't feel fresh. Usually when you go out for a walk, try to enjoy the nature, try to get a lot of air, natural oxygen, you don't feel the same anymore. But I would like to mention something. It's nothing against anybody's this thing right now, but I would say this lockdown is a blessing in disguise for us. uh, Certainly after 15-20 years I spotted a sparrow. Normally you don't see that in Bangalore, and I spotted one sparrow, and when I saw that, I felt that okay, it's the cycle. It's the nature is trying to teach us something, that you never protected us, and I think it's time for you all to shut yourselves inside the house, and this is how the nature's call us. We are here, and I see, and I feel so happy when I actually spotted the sparrow the other day, ma'am, and it shows, it definitely teaches us a lot of things, that yes, we need to contribute a lot, and I felt in some way that the lockdown is definitely a blessing in disguise. I think everything is coming back to its own. I feel it's like a reset button onto the nature now, because I think we've tortured the nature a lot. I think we are paying back for it, for whatever we've extracted from it, and I think it's a good breather for nature also, man. That's how I'm personally taking, because I'm a big fan of all this. I believe in the cycles of the nature, in all of this process. But I'm very happy, ma'am, that I spotted a sparrow the other day. I mean, personally, it is a personal joy for me.
There was this series of videos that came out, which was recorded in celebrity voices like George Clooney and Julia Roberts and so on, where it was about earth and wind and so on, where they say that the earth has been there for billions of years and we are just visitors. So if we try to mess with them, we will just get extinct and they will continue remaining. So
We are all
yes, very true.
actually, all of us are paying for it, for playing with the nature. So
Right.
I think reset button for all of us. I think since last 1 year, the air quality has also gone up. I think overall the Delhi, if you go back to Delhi, I think the air quality has also gone up much better. Even the Bangalore also. It's in a way we have to take this as a blessing for our future generation, for our kids. The youth. I think we are contributing in a major factor, ma'am, because we enjoyed the nature. I think it's time for them to allow for them also to enjoy the nature, and that's how I'm looking at it right now, ma'am. The current situation is actually a lesson for all of us to actually reset and contribute to the younger generation as well.
Yes, it definitely is a reset. So, Meera, like Divya told us, Vicky does have a huge network. And what, in your view, is something that Vicky can do in terms of helping bring about change?
So first level is definitely awareness, and I think this forum itself is a is a great start. And most of the time what happens is organizations just meet up for the 5th June World Environment Day, and then it doesn't you don't take that forward. Then you meet again for the next World Environment Day. In my view, every day should be World Environment Day for everybody. And only then I think we can substantially see the changes that Divya and Vanita would want to see in this world. I think my generation probably has done enough damage now. There is no way we can actually look up and look up with a lot of pride back to them and say, no, look, we have done great stuff. So it's very important that we continue the conversations. We ensure that the women's group can the Vicky champions it, and I feel women. If you really look at it, right? I mean, I have a lot of hope in women because if you take starting from Chipko movement or anything that you've seen in the past. Women have played a very substantial role in ensuring that nature is conserved, and women have this innate tendency to nurture. Why not we ensure that that is fed well, right? That's a positive change that we can bring in. And even in the village, right? I mean, the forest fringe villages that we work on, it is the women who are nurturers, for all the saplings that we grow and, we rebag and do it, they without them, it is not possible to sprout seeds. So it's as fundamental as that. It is, if you have that, we nurture our babies, we raise them, like that, we can definitely take care of the of the planet around us. And I think I have seen strong women who stand by what they do, and they ensure that things are done. Pollution is only because of our own mindlessness. With this age of information on what a pollutant can cause, I don't think we can definitely we have any answer to our next generation. So instead of piling up the bank accounts, with a lot of money, it is now time that we pile them up with a lot of green aspects of what we can give. What is the quality of our forests that we can give them back? Because the quality of forest is ultimately ensuring that you have quality of oxygen available. Through this pandemic, I think maybe 3 years ago when I spoke about oxygen, nobody would even listen to me. When I spoke about deforestation and zoonotic diseases that will jump because the forest is stressed, nobody will listen to me. But today, when I say monkey fever as a disease that occurred in, say, Chikmagalur, that started in Chikmagalur, it has moved to places like Wayanad. The primary cause is deforestation, and it is a pandemic, right? Or it's not a pandemic yet, but what I'm saying is it is a contagious disease. So when you talk about diseases, and if its origins are there because you're also creating so much of destruction in the forest, it is high time that we take pandemic as a lesson to come and create a new world normal. The earlier normal had a problem, and I think that's why we are all sitting at home, holed up, and without, thanks to the internet world, otherwise we wouldn't have been even talking in this manner. So there is a lot we can do, and as women, definitely the points that Vanita mentioned about how they can do in their own spaces. Conscious consumption is one aspect of it. Again, how can cities basically support the rural? It's a very important conversation, right? I mean, every time when I talk to a lot of people in the organizations, companies, you see that there is always this divide. I come from a corporate world. Many years I have worked on the corporate side, so I can definitely understand that there is definitely a divide. It's very different when you talk to the people in the urban and when you talk to the people in the rural. So it's not possible for somebody like me to go and talk about energy efficiency in the rural, because they're already not consuming anything. All you need is to ensure that that divide is lesser and lesser, and only then there is lot this the rural can support back to the urban. Because if I'm talking, if we are talking about organic, it's organic food can come from the rural, they are capable of doing it, but only when the urban has a demand for it. Otherwise, it will not work out, right? So there is lot of consciousness in terms of consumption that needs to change, and I feel that women, Vicky, definitely can play a pivotal role in that, and we can definitely bring in a lot of positive changes in the coming years. And this should only be looked upon as a start of that, and not meet again in the next World Environment Day. Thank you.
Yes, this is definitely just the start, and we shall definitely do much more in this regard. Vanita, as a youth icon of sorts, what do you think you can do to mobilize youth in this direction? How can you say bring about their awareness to start working in this domain?
Ma'am, we ourselves need to set, as to how we want others to be and how we want things to be. I think we need to set an example ourselves and start using or function things in a manner which will help and contribute to the environment. Say, for example, no plastic, big no to plastics, because plastics are the things where I personally feel there are a lot of dump, in the backyard of the lake. And if you look at it, there are only plastics. And these are the small little factors what we can actually contribute or attribute to in cause of environment, ma'am. I think small little steps will make a huge difference. It's not something which we can turn overnight, because the damage what we've done has been throughout the years. It's not something which we can turn overnight, but yes, definitely, little by little, one step at a time will make a huge difference for all of us, ma'am. And then go organic, and stop using, say no to plastic, and then don't litter. Grow a lot of plants around your place, or wherever little, plant, and that is the only thing which is going to help us in the future. So back then, I'll give you an example. We just organized a tournament, and in terms of or to acknowledge the nature, we actually gave saplings as a memento for the guest. So that is something which I've always had in back of my mind, to set an example. And these are the things what we can actually do it in a smaller ways, because we are confined to limitations, and whatever limitations we have, I think we can use it in a better and wiser way, is what I feel, ma'am. And awareness is something which we have to keep creating, as in the position we are in. That will probably inspire people to actually look up and take up to, because what you create and what you do is what many people are going to follow. And you need to set an example, and that's going to start as a baby step, is what I look forward, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Is there any last note that you would like to leave, a message to the youth, or any of you? You all can take it up. Any message that you'd like to leave, give the youth, give on, say, how to protect Mother Earth, or how to show more inclination towards, like she said, stop polluting the environment, stop using plastic, start going green, giving just plants as a memento, as opposed to say something in plastic. Is there any last note that you would like to end with?
I can add something here. Something that I mentioned in the beginning as well. I think I want to add to the fact what Meera ma'am said is that, we meet one environment day and we don't talk until the next environment day. So something that has helped me change is to basically look at my impact, right? So carbon footprint, as I mentioned, if each one of us could go and understand what our impact is, what are the areas of impact are. Like if you look at any carbon footprint calculator, the UN one, or like you can download like 10,000 apps right now, anything that you can download and make it actionable for yourself. Like maybe just like like these days you track 10,000 steps every day. Look at, maybe you can reduce something, towards the carbon footprint, and maybe make it more fun for yourself, right? Like there's as you want to become a better person at the end of the day. So maybe that's something that you would enjoy. So I would highly recommend young people, especially who have, want to challenge themselves and have inspiration on a daily basis. Download any carbon footprint app and just see what your impact is and how you can get better at it.
Thank you so much. There is a small video that Meera had recommended, which I'd like to play now.
We are in Wayanad, part of the Western Ghats, a biodiversity hotspot. We are here to restore a 70-acre degraded forest land. Wayanad is Vananadu, land of forests, or Wayanadu, land of paddy fields, harboring the world's largest recorded population of Asiatic elephants and largest densities of tiger populations in the country. Brahmagiri Hills, the origin of river Kalindi or tributary of Kabini, is located in Wayanad. The forests sustain our food by ensuring the flow of these streams. Indigenous farmers of Wayanad have an intricate relationship with the streams that originate in the forests of Western Ghats. Forest cover in Wayanad has dwindled from 70% to 40% since 1970. Deforestation and fragmentation of animal corridors for plantations like teak and for large-scale development are the primary reasons. The land is heavily invaded by Lantana camara. Invasive species have taken over, reducing food availability for wildlife and triggering human-animal conflicts. Removal of invasive species like Lantana and Senna spectabilis is a highly effort-intensive process. Presence of high-density invasive species makes it difficult for the native floral species to regenerate. Forest First is a non-profit with over 10 years of experience in habitat conservation. We have 60 hectares of degraded land under restoration. Typically, restoration is a 3 to 5 year process of removal of invasives, introduction of native species, and managing secondary regeneration of invasive species. Saplings were nurtured in our nursery for over 2 to 3 years before they were planted to ensure a higher survival rate. Saplings were segregated based on ecology types: riverine, semi-dry, and dry hill slopes. After identifying planting sites, it is now time to carry the right species of saplings to the right locations. The indigenous tribes, Urali Kurumbars and Katanaikas, are the restorers, braving the heavy rain and sunshine, walking through tough terrain, clearing invasives. A well-performing riparian buffer is covered by large riverine species. Riparian buffers have degraded in its species diversity, affecting water holding capacity. Urban water needs of lakhs of people in places as far away as Bengaluru is dependent on the restoration of such degraded forest patches in the Western Ghats. 6 acres of marshy wetland area, which is used by ungulates for grazing, was left without planting any saplings to conserve the grass diversity. We saw bug marks of 2 individual tigers and sighted 1 tiger during our fieldwork. White-rumped and red-headed vultures have been sighted on the site. Over a span of 5 weeks, 6,100 saplings of 80 species were planted on the restoration site. The entire activity took us 500 person days of effort that provided local livelihoods. We are restorers of forest land. We walk long distances to segregate, carry saplings on headload, plant the right species in the right ecosystems. We remove lantana around naturally regenerated saplings so that they establish well. We work jointly with the support of Kerala Forest Department. We take help from plant taxonomists and wildlife biologists for applying science on our fieldwork. Our dream is to restore more lands that are degraded by invasives to diverse native patches that support larger biodiversity.
Thank you so much. On behalf of Vicky Karnataka Human Resource Council, I'd like to thank all of you for taking time out. I know how busy all of you are, and given that this is Environment Week, there'll be a lot of panels hoping to have you all on. So thank you so much. I'm sure we'll keep all this in mind. We'll definitely be calculating our carbon footprint, downloading apps, and do our best to spread awareness in whatever possible ways that we can. And yes, women will bring about the change, and women will be the change makers. And Vicky will play definitely a big role in that. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, and congrats for a great discussion.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, all of you.